Welcome once again. Before we begin, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up because what I'm about to share with you is going to blow your mind. John McEnroe, the legendary seven-time Grand Slam champion, the man who battled Bjorn Borg in some of the greatest matches ever played, has just dropped the most controversial bombshell in tennis history. And trust me, what he's saying is making people absolutely lose their minds. McEnroe has gone on record saying that Carlos Alcaraz is the most talented young player he's ever seen. And when I say ever, I mean ever. More talented than Roger Federer? More talented than Rafael Nadal? More talented than Novak Djokovic? Yes, you heard that right. The big three, the holy trinity of tennis, the guys who've combined for 66 Grand Slam titles, and McEnroe is saying this 22-year-old kid from Spain has more raw talent than all of them at the same age. But wait, it gets even crazier. McEnroe didn't stop there. He went on to say that both Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner would be favorites to beat Rafael Nadal in his prime on clay. On clay! The surface where Nadal is literally called the king. The place where he won 14 French Open titles. The court where he was basically unbeatable for 2 decades. And McEnroe is sitting there, bold as brass, saying these two young guns would be favored against prime Rafa on his own turf. Now, before you click away thinking this is just some hot take designed to get clicks, stick with me. Because what McEnroe is seeing, what he's predicting, it's backed up by something we're all witnessing right now. Something that's actually happening before our very eyes. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why he might be absolutely right. Let's start with the most important stat that nobody's talking about enough. Alcaraz and Sinner have won the last 8 Grand Slam titles. 8 in a row, that's 2 full years of complete dominance. The last time someone not named Alcaraz or Sinner won a major was September 2023, when Djokovic took the US Open. Since then, it's been a complete lockout. These two have split every single Grand Slam right down the middle. 2-2 in 2024, 2-2 in 2025. Like clockwork. And here's what makes this even more insane. The big three never did this. Not at this age. Not with this level of complete control. Sure, they dominated for 2 decades, but even at their peak, other players would break through. Stan Wawrinka grabbed 3 slams. Andy Murray won 3. Juan Martín del Potro got 1. Dominic Thiem got 1. But right now, with Alcaraz and Sinner, nobody else is even getting close. It's like watching 2 players operating in a completely different dimension from everyone else on tour. McEnroe watches tennis for a living. He's seen it all. He played against the greatest of his generation. He's commentated on Federer's grace, Nadal's intensity, and Djokovic's machine-like consistency for years. So when a man like that says Alcaraz is the most talented player he's ever seen, we need to pay attention. We need to understand what he's seeing that maybe we're missing. Let me break down exactly what McEnroe said, word for word, because it's too good not to quote directly. He was on ESPN talking about the US Open, and he said, "This guy, Carlos Alcaraz, in my opinion, is the most talented young kid I've ever seen on a tennis court. That's more than Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, who I have great respect for." That's not some casual comment. That's a declaration. That's a legend of the game putting his reputation on the line and saying what he sees. Now, let's talk about that French Open final in 2025. 5 hours and 29 minutes, the longest French Open final in history, the second longest Grand Slam match ever played. Alcaraz came back from 2 sets down, saved 3 championship points, and somehow found a way to beat Sinner in what many are calling the greatest match they've ever witnessed. And here's the thing that people aren't grasping yet. These guys are 22 and 24 years old. They're not in their prime yet. They're still learning, they're still improving, and they're already producing tennis like this? Think about what that means for the next decade. If they're doing this now, what happens when they hit their true peak at 26, 27, 28? What happens when they've got another 5 years of experience, another 5 years of physical development, another 5 years of tactical refinement? The mind absolutely boggles at the possibilities. McEnroe also said something else that's crucial to understanding his prediction. He said, "In my opinion, if both guys play their best, Carlos Alcaraz is the better all-around player. If he brings A- or below, Sinner's going to beat him. That's what it boils down to." That's fascinating because what he's saying is that Alcaraz's ceiling is higher, but Sinner's consistency is better. And you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of the Federer-Djokovic dynamic. Federer had the higher ceiling in terms of shot making and artistry, but Djokovic had the consistency and the reliability. And here's where it gets really interesting for the big three comparison. Alcaraz already has 6 Grand Slam titles at age 22. 6. Federer had 4 by that age. Nadal had 2. Djokovic had 1. Yes, 1. The guy who ended up with 24 majors only had 1 slam by age 22. So when people say, oh, they'll never catch the big three, I want you to remember those numbers. Alcaraz is ahead of where all 3 of them were at the same age. Sinner has 4 Grand Slams at age 24. That's the same number Federer had at 24. It's more than Nadal had. It's way more than Djokovic had. And unlike the big three who had to fight each other, and a strong supporting cast of players like Andy Roddick, Leighton Hewitt, and Marat Safin, Alcaraz and Sinner are clearing out the field with ruthless efficiency. Let's talk about the statement that really got people fired up. The clay court comparison with Nadal. When McEnroe said Alcaraz and Sinner would be favorites against prime Nadal on clay, the tennis world collectively lost its mind. People were outraged. How dare he disrespect Rafa like that? They cried. Nadal on clay was unstoppable, they screamed. Even Andy Murray came out and basically said, whoa there, let's not get carried away. But here's what McEnroe is seeing that the critics are missing. He's not saying Alcaraz and Sinner would destroy Nadal on clay. He's saying they'd be favorites, as in, if you were putting money down, if you were looking at the tennis level, these guys are playing right now versus what Nadal played at his peak, it would be an absolute toss-up. And considering Nadal's status as the undisputed clay court GOAT, that's actually an insane compliment to Alcaraz and Sinner. Look at what Alcaraz has already done on clay. 3 French Open finals in 3 years. 2 titles, 11 clay court titles total. At age 22, he's not just winning on clay, he's dominating on it. And the way he plays with that combination of power, speed, and variety, it's almost like he took the best elements of Nadal's game and added his own flavor to it.
Hola a todos,
The
nada,
drop
quería deciros
shots,
que ya está por
the
aquí
angles,
el
the way he
segundo
can
US
go from
Open.
defense to
Nada, quería
offense
dar
in a
las
single
gracias
shot.
a todos
It's
por
poetry
todo el
in
apoyo
motion.
durante toda la semana.
And Sinner? People forget, but Sinner has been developing a really dangerous clay court game. He pushed Alcaraz to the absolute limit in that French Open final. He was 2 sets up, 3 championship points away from winning on clay against a guy who's basically the second coming of Nadal in that surface. The fact that he got that close tells you everything you need to know about his clay court ceiling. But let's zoom out for a second and talk about the bigger picture. Why does McEnroe think these guys can surpass the big three? It's not just about talent. It's about the era they're playing in. See, Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic had to deal with each other. That 3-way rivalry pushed them all to greatness. But it also meant that for large stretches, 2 of them were keeping the third from winning. When Federer was dominating in the mid-2000s, Nadal started beating him on clay. When Nadal and Federer were having their legendary rivalry, Djokovic came along and started beating both of them. That competition, while amazing for tennis, actually limited how many slams each one could win. Alcaraz and Sinner? They've got each other, sure, but look at the rest of the field. Alexander Zverev is in his late 20s and has never won a major. Daniil Medvedev won 1 slam years ago and hasn't been able to add to it despite multiple finals. Taylor Fritz, Jack Draper, Ben Shelton, these guys are all talented, but none of them are close to Alcaraz and Sinner's level. None of them. Alex de Minaur is 0 and 18 against them combined. 0 and 18. That's not a rivalry. That's target practice. So what you've got is a situation where Alcaraz and Sinner are basically going to split the majors between themselves for the next decade unless someone extraordinary emerges. And even if someone does emerge, they're already so far ahead in terms of experience and big match toughness that it's going to be incredibly difficult for anyone to catch up. Let's do some math here, and this is where it gets really scary for the Big Three's legacy. Alcaraz is 22 with 6 majors. If he wins just 2 slams a year for the next 9 years, he'll have 24 majors by age 31. That ties Djokovic's record. If he manages to win 3 slams in a couple of those years, which is totally realistic given his level, he could hit 30 majors by his early 30s. 30! Sinner is 24 with 4 majors, same math. 2 slams a year for 8 years gets him to 20 by age 32. And remember, these projections assume they don't improve, don't get better, don't add new weapons to their games. But we know they will. We've already seen both of them evolving and adapting. After Alcaraz beat Sinner at the US Open, Sinner immediately went and worked on adding more variety to his game, more drop shots, more lobs. And then what happened? He beat Alcaraz in the ATP Finals using exactly those new elements. These guys are learning machines. Patrick Mouratoglou, the legendary coach who trained Serena Williams for years, came out recently and said that Alcaraz or Sinner could potentially match John McEnroe's incredible 1984 season, where he went 82-3 with 13 titles. Mouratoglou said, "When you see the dominance of Carlos and Yannick at the moment, I think that if one year one of those two is injured and the other one is extremely focused, they can beat that record." That's how dominant these guys are. Coaches who've seen the very best in tennis history are saying these two might be able to do things nobody else has ever done. Now, let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention: the physicality and the athleticism of modern tennis. People love to romanticize the past, to say that Federer's elegance or Nadal's intensity or Djokovic's flexibility were unmatched. But here's the reality. The sport has evolved. The players are bigger, stronger, faster. The training methods are more advanced. The sports science is better. The nutrition is optimized. Everything about the modern game is designed to produce peak athletes, and Alcaraz and Sinner are the apex of that evolution. Dan Evans, a player who's actually been on court with both the old generation and the new, said something really interesting. He said that Sinner and Alcaraz hit harder than Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. Harder. These are guys who've played against all of them, and he's saying the ball comes heavier, faster, with more power from the new generation. That's not nostalgia. That's direct observation from someone who's felt it firsthand. McEnroe also talked about the level of tennis he's seeing right now.
Hello guys, Yannick
said,
here. I'm very,
the tennis
very
level right
happy
now is higher than I've ever seen.
That I
Coming
can say
from a
that
man
I'm
who's been
Wimbledon
involved in
champion,
professional tennis for over
but just
40
wanted to
years,
say thank you
who
so
played
much
in the
for
80s when
your
the game was incredibly competitive, who commentated through the entire Big Three era, that's an extraordinary statement. He's not saying Alcaraz and Sinner are better players than the Big Three at their peak. He's saying the overall level of tennis being played when they meet is higher than anything he's witnessed before. That French Open final is the perfect example. Welcome to my channel. 5.5 hours
Before we
of tennis
begin, make
played
sure
at
to
an
hit the
intensity
subscribe button
quality that
and
was
turn on
basically
notifications.
unrelenting.
The
Shot
tennis
after
world is
shot after shot of
absolutely
the
reeling
highest
right
level.
now.
And
No
if you
letting
haven't
up.
heard, no easy points. Just pure, unadulterated elite tennis for 5 hours and 29 minutes. And then they turned around and did it again at Wimbledon, and again at the US Open, and again at the ATP Finals. 6 times they met in finals in 2025. 6. And every single time it was must-see television.
guys. Thanks
Here's
for
another
the
factor
support.
that people aren't
Thanks for
considering.
coming. It has been amazing.
Durability.
The
The
atmosphere
Big
has been
Three stayed
amazing.
healthy
So
for an incredibly
see you all
long
in the
time.
next round again.
That's part of what made them great. But you know what? Alcaraz and Sinner are showing signs of that same durability. Sure, Sinner had that hip issue and the 3-month suspension, but he came back stronger. Alcaraz has been remarkably healthy considering his aggressive playing style. And they're doing this while playing in an era where the schedule is even more demanding, where the physicality of the game is even more extreme. The mental side of things is crucial too. People talk about Djokovic's mental strength, about how he could win from impossible positions, how he never gave up. Well, let me tell you about Alcaraz saving 3 championship points in a French Open final. Let me tell you about the mental fortitude it takes to come back from 2 sets down in a 5-hour match. That's not luck. That's not just talent. That's champion mentality. That's the same clutch gene that Djokovic had, that Nadal had, that all the greats have. And Sinner? The way he handled that doping controversy, the way he dealt with the pressure and the scrutiny and still managed to win 2 Grand Slams in the ATP Finals? That's mental toughness of the highest order. That's the kind of resilience that champions are made of. These aren't just talented kids who might fade away when things get tough. These are warriors who've already been tested by fire and come through stronger. Let's talk about the one argument people always make when defending the Big Three. But they won 20-plus slams each. Alcaraz and Sinner haven't done that yet. And you're right, they haven't. But they're on pace to do exactly that. And here's the thing people don't want to admit. The Big Three benefited from playing in an era where they had the field largely to themselves. Yes, they had each other, but after Murray and Wawrinka, who else was really competing? The rest of the field was comparatively weak. Alcaraz and Sinner are doing this in an era where the depth of talent is supposedly better, where everyone trains like professionals from age 5, where everyone has access to top coaching and sports science. And they're still making everyone else look like they're playing a different sport. That's dominance of a different magnitude. McEnroe made another fascinating point. He said these guys can't possibly, can they, dominate like the last 3 guys have. But here's the thing. He said that before Alcaraz and Sinner won 8 slams in a row, he said that before we saw just how much better they are than everyone else. And maybe, just maybe, he's going to be proven wrong. Maybe these two can dominate like the big 3 did. Maybe they can dominate even more completely because there's no third player to split the titles with. Think about it. The big 3 split 66 majors over roughly 15 years. That's about 4.4 majors per year between the 3 of them. Alcaraz and Sinner have won 8 of the last 8 majors. That's 4 majors per year between the 2 of them. They're matching the big 3's rate, but with 1 fewer player. If they keep this up, if they stay healthy, if they maintain this level, they could potentially accumulate even more slams in a shorter period of time. And here's something else that's wild. Alcaraz has already completed 3/4 of a career Grand Slam. He's won the French Open, Wimbledon, and the US Open. Multiple times at each, he just needs the Australian Open. 1 tournament. He's 22 years old, and he's 1 tournament away from joining the most exclusive club in tennis. Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, they all did it, but they were older when they completed it. Alcaraz could do it in January at age 22. That would be insane. Sinner needs a French Open to complete his career Grand Slam. That's his only missing piece. And after coming within 1 point of winning it in 2025, after pushing Alcaraz to the absolute brink, does anyone really doubt he'll win it eventually? Especially as he continues to improve on clay? I'd bet money that within 3 years, both of these guys will have completed career Grand Slams. Both of them. In their mid-20s. That's a level of accomplishment that took the big 3 much longer to achieve. The coaching situation is interesting too. Alcaraz just split with Juan Carlos Ferrero, the man who built him into a champion. That's a massive change, potentially a massive risk. But you know what? Sometimes change is what pushes great players to become legendary. Djokovic split with various coaches over his career. Nadal and his uncle Tony eventually parted ways professionally. Murray split with Lendl, then reunited with him. These transitions are part of the journey to greatness, and if Alcaraz can navigate this change successfully, if he can win the Australian Open with his new coaching setup, that would be a statement. Sinner, meanwhile, has stability with Darren Cahill, one of the best coaches in the game. Cahill helped Andre Agassi, helped Leighton Hewitt, helped Simona Halep. He knows what it takes to guide players to the top and keep them there. Having that experience in his corner as he enters his mid-20s, that's invaluable. That's the kind of advantage that could help him add another 5 or 10 majors to his tally. Here's what people need to understand about McEnroe's prediction. He's not saying Alcaraz and Sinner will definitely surpass the big 3. He's saying they have the talent, the opportunity, and the trajectory to do it. He's saying that if things continue the way they're going, if the dominance continues, if the health holds up, we could be looking at 2 players who redefine what's possible in tennis. And maybe that scares some people. Maybe people don't want to let go of the big 3 era. Maybe there's too much nostalgia, too much emotional attachment to Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. I get it. I really do. Those 3 gave us 2 decades of unbelievable tennis. They gave us rivalries that will never be forgotten. They gave us moments that defined our love for this sport. But here's the thing. Tennis doesn't stop. The sport evolves. New champions emerge. And sometimes, just sometimes, those new champions are even better than what came before. That doesn't diminish what the big 3 accomplished. It doesn't take away from their legacy. It just means that the sport we love has found new heroes who are capable of taking it to even greater heights. McEnroe sees it. Muratoglu sees it. Dan Evans, who's played against all of them, sees it. The question is, are we ready to see it too? Are we ready to accept that we might be watching something even more special than what we witnessed with the big 3? Because here's my prediction. By the time Alcaraz and Sinner retire, we're going to be having conversations about whether they're the greatest players of all time. Not just great, not just legends, but potentially the GOATs. Plural. 2 players who pushed each other to such incredible heights that they surpassed everything that came before them. Alcaraz could finish with 30-plus majors. Sinner could finish with 25-plus majors. That would give them 55 majors combined, nearly as many as the Big Three's 66, but achieved by 2 players instead of 3. And if you're doing the math on average slams per player, that would actually make them more successful individually than the Big Three. The level of play is higher. The competition between them is fiercer. The consistency is there. The mental toughness is proven. The physical tools are superior. The trajectories are perfect. Everything is lining up for Alcaraz and Sinner to do something truly unprecedented in tennis history. Not just match the Big Three, not just equal them, but surpass them. And you know what the craziest part is? We're watching it happen right now. We're witnessing history in real time. Every time they step on court, every time they play one of these epic finals, we're seeing the building blocks of a legacy that might end up being the greatest in tennis history. That's not hyperbole. That's not hot take nonsense. That's just following the numbers, following the trajectory, following what the legends of the game like McEnroe are telling us. So the next time someone tells you that the Big Three can never be surpassed, that their legacy is untouchable, that 66 majors combined is an unreachable standard, I want you to remember this video. I want you to remember that Alcaraz already has 6 majors at 22, that Sinner has 4 at 24, that they've won 8 slams in a row, that they're playing tennis at a level McEnroe says is higher than anything he's ever seen. And then I want you to ask yourself, is it really so crazy to think they might actually do it? McEnroe doesn't think it's crazy. He's putting his reputation on the line to say that Alcaraz is more talented than Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic were at the same age. He's saying that both of them would be competitive with prime Nadal on clay. Those aren't casual observations. Those are bold declarations from a man who knows greatness when he sees it, because he lived it himself. The Australian Open is right around the corner. Alcaraz is going for the career Grand Slam. Sinner is going for the three-peat. One or both of them will probably make the final. Again, they'll probably produce another classic. Again. And with every match, with every tournament, with every year that passes, we're going to watch them climb closer and closer to those numbers that seem untouchable right now. 20, 25, 30 Grand Slams. It's not a question of if anymore. It's a question of when. And probably not just one of them, but both of them. We're watching 2 all-time greats in the making, 2 players who are on track to redefine what greatness means in tennis, 2 champions who might just prove John McEnroe right in the most spectacular way possible. So, what do you think? Is McEnroe out of his mind with this prediction? Or is he seeing something the rest of us are only just beginning to understand? Do Alcaraz and Sinner have what it takes to actually surpass the Big Three? Can they maintain this insane level of dominance for another decade? And most importantly, are we ready to accept that the greatest era of tennis might not be behind us, but right in front of us? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this is the debate that's going to define tennis for the next decade. Are you Team Big Three forever, or are you ready to embrace the new era? Let me know where you stand. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into why McEnroe thinks these young guns can surpass the legends, then smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell, because we're going to be following this story every step of the way. Every tournament, every final, every milestone, we'll be here to break it down and see if McEnroe's